I think one of the things about if you don't have rehearsal, some just don't have the time. I mean, the time you do have is really a chance for everyone, I think, to meet in the space if you can, where you're going to shoot. Say lines, just be clear in the most simple way. Because what I think, I worked with the director Istvan Sabo, and it made an impression on me that he was very protective that the actor didn't ever commit to performance in rehearsal, that he wanted to keep it for the camera. So I think film rehearsal should be quite, I feel like there's no hard and fast rule, but they can be quite light and simple, just so people get to listen to each other, make eye contact, and you just help them as to where physically they are, what choices they have.
When I arrived, because we didn't have much rehearsal, but when I first arrived, they had started filming, and it was filming the fight scene actually when Rafe is absolutely covered in blood and just all you see is his eyes. And we scheduled a lunch to talk about the relationship between Virgilia and Coriolanus. And I'm just off the plane, and I'm thinking, okay, let's talk about this. And I show up, and he shows up in costume, completely covered in blood. And we're eating, and I'm not very talkative. And actually, you said to me, like, "Are you all right?" You said, "You're very quiet. Is everything okay?" And I was like, "Do you know what you look like right now?"
I forgot. And you're a vegetarian.
We have a question over here.
Hello, Juan Carlos Garcia from Mexico. A question for Mr. Butler. Do you feel more comfortable working on comedy films, romantic films, action films, dramatic? What makes you feel more comfortable?
What makes a film what?
More comfortable working, what kind of roles? In what kind of roles do you feel more comfortable working on romantic?
What makes a film more comfortable?
Yeah, sorry for my pronunciation.
I think I understand what you're saying now, but I don't understand what makes a film more comfortable?
Yeah, what roles do you find
what kind of movie am I most comfortable in?
Yeah. Right.
Sorry. See, you should be asking other people questions. It's not easy when you come to me. I don't know what kind of roles I'm most comfortable in. I was surprised how comfortable I was in Shakespeare, having played other roles that kind of make a stab at some form of stylized language, slightly classical and other plays, but especially films that I've done. And that was kind of one stepping stone in going towards Shakespeare that I found it much easier to broach than I thought it would. But to be honest, this has been a year for me trying to step into areas that I don't necessarily feel comfortable in, going into kind of edgy, more dramatic, grittier roles. And Shakespeare itself. So, I'm actually asking the opposite question now, is where can I go that I don't feel so comfortable? But I'm going to learn something.
Another question way in the back?
Yes, hi. Stephen Holt from the Stephen Holt Show in New York. I want to say I'm a bardolater, and Coriolanus has never really been taken seriously as one of Shakespeare's best plays, but this is one of the best movies ever made from Shakespeare, I think. I was blown away. I thought I knew it. And I think I always felt this was Shakespeare's play about mom. Like he was writing about his mother finally in this play. And Volumnia, in your version, becomes one of the great Shakespearean villainesses, I think, up there with Lady Macbeth. But the whole movie seemed really focused on Coriolanus and mom and who was going to win. And, of course, we know the answer to that question. Were you trying to do that?
Well, I think all the sort of narrative and dramatic strands of the piece all lead to this confrontation between the mother and the son. Everything about it leads. You can feel it in the writing. For all the political discussions and negotiations and the intensity, even with Ophidius, they all in the end they're like converging roads that lead to this sort of umbilical confrontation between a mother and a son. And that's, in the end, that's what's always moved me about the piece. When I first saw it, I remember weeping at that scene. So it is central, yeah.
Rafe, one of the things that really struck me about the film was your use of very contemporary icons, camera phones. I mean, these days you can't do anything without showing up on YouTube. Talk a bit about the idea to include that sort of thing, which really contemporized it a step further than we may have seen anywhere else.
Well, it was really just because I wanted it to be made. It's set now. I mean, I guess it'll probably inevitably date, but I didn't want it to be futuristic. I wanted it to be now, and now was it was the time of the Green Revolution in Tehran, and images were coming through on cell phones and constantly all the time. I mean, all the time people are photographing and doing video clips, and it just seemed it was part of the world we're in, that any politician going down the street would be videoed and photographed and recorded.
And what about the idea of bringing in TV analysts as the chorus?
Well, that was really one. I mean, there were many great ideas in this that are from John Logan, and that was one of them, because there were constant messenger moments in the play where people run on with news. But it was, in a way, it was staring us in the face, but it was John who put it on the page to say, look, these should be news announcers. And funnily enough, there's a scene in it where we have sort of pundits discussing the pros and cons of Coriolanus, which was in an earlier draft. Then we thought we had to take it out because we just had to start being leaner about things. And then actually when we were editing it, my editor, Nick Gaster, said, we need something to contextualize a sort of political argument that's going on. And I showed him this earlier draft. And so we then went to the BBC, who actually have contributed to this film, but we used the BBC studios and had Jon Snow, who is, in fact, a Channel 4 news presenter, come in. And he did. Actually, no, that's right. We were always going to shoot Jon Snow. We hadn't shot him, but we used that schedule to create this little scene with the two pundits discussing.
We've got time for a couple more questions, so please stick up your hand if you have one. Got one right here.
Yes, I have another question for Ralph Fiennes. What do you think Ralph Fiennes, the actor, thinks of Ralph Fiennes, the director, and what Ralph Fiennes, the director, thinks about Ralph Fiennes, the actor?
I think Rafe, the actor, wished the director had given him more time, because he was always moving on, focusing on other people. And I think the director looks at the performance and thanks everyone else around him that they managed to save the performance with the good editing and good angles. Thanks to a good editor, the director's very grateful to the editor for putting together some kind of performance.
Rafe, one of the stunning things in the movie was the amount of firepower early on in the film. Could you talk a bit about that and also the contrast to the relatively quiet nature of the violence and the suicide in the latter half of the film? You talk about contrasting the look and feel of those two elements?
I suppose some of it emerged just in post-production. I mean, I think my editor Nick and I felt, and I definitely felt you wanted the rawness of that, what it is to hear explosions and guns, and it's amped up a bit, I think, in the volume. I mean, the mix definitely needs to feel the audience slightly feel it really present. And then it's a different nature. The violence at the end is, well, it's knives. But it's more emotional. I mean, it's more intimate. It's something else. It's not just about a convincing death. It's a weird kind of love affair. It's a death. It's something sexual. It's something intimate. So I think, and we just tried different things, and in the end, in the mix, we just tried taking the sound right out.
And Brian, maybe you can talk about the suicide of Menenius a little bit, and Rafe chime in on how you guys came up with the visual look of that, and
It's a major spoiler, by the way. Talk about your suicide. Yeah. Oh, that happens.
It's just very simple. I mean, the nice thing was that, for me, the part had a completion, which it doesn't in the play. Because in the play, he doesn't. He just sort of fades off into the ether. Whereas here, there was an absolute conclusion to the events that had happened, and it was a tragically logical conclusion, really. And it was just with simplicity, really, wasn't it? It was just very simple and very, you know, it was about a man who put all his money on this, you know, and it's very, again, it's a very complex relationship, the relationship between Menenius and Coriolanus. And in the end, he's just, he runs out, you know, he's overbacked the horse and it hasn't come up, and he's got nothing in reverse.
Well, that is a bit of a spoiler, but it's Shakespearean tragedy. You know, things aren't going to end well.
Star, I have a question for both Jessica and Gerard. When you have movies coming out nose to nose, back to back, and you know you're trying to promote them, do you feel kind of sad for one of the movies being overshadowed by the other, or that you can't give your whole to it because you have to pay attention to the next one that's coming out? I mean, 2 big movies, 2 nights in a row. No wonder you're tired. But would you like them to have been spread out more, that you could really devote yourself to them and to their promotion and to loving them?
Yeah, I you know, with The Help and The Debt especially, that was a situation where The Help had just opened and it was so wonderful and so successful, and you know, everyone was embracing it. And then I started the press junket for The Debt, which is a film that I really love, and a lot of the questions people wanted to talk about The Help. So I did find myself trying to somehow steer it back, and thank goodness The Debt did well, because then I would feel like I was a mother that was, you know, choosing one child over the other. It's a complicated thing. But then someone else told me that perhaps The Help helped The Debt. So I guess there are negatives and positives with that. Just the sense of exposure can shine the light on a film that perhaps not that many people would have seen had they not seen the first one.
Yeah, no, I think like Jessica says, I think in the bigger picture, when you have a couple of movies close together, then it definitely spurs some kind of extra excitement, which helps, you know, which kind of bleeds into each movie. But without a doubt, it affects the effort that you can give to each. And you know, this has been, I mean, I joke about that feeling this morning, but really, this has actually been an exhausting time for me, because I'm in the middle of a press tour all over America for Machine Gun Preacher, and then trying to do this, and I start another movie in October where I'm trying to become an incredible surfer, and be like the all-American kind of beach bum Californian guy, and do 2 days reshoots on my previous movie, and do this press junket also in the UK. I do that. I literally don't have a day off until I start the next film, and then I don't have a day off from that. So that's tough, but at the same time, it's kind of a great place to be as well. I mean, these 2 days, this time in Toronto has been very intense, but it's like, you know, it's like that when you're living it like that, you know it's going well, and it's also been a really, really exciting time for me to be involved with both these movies. I just wish I could have given them a bit more love.
All right, Coriolanus is a TIFF special presentation that will make its festival premiere tonight in the Visa screening room at the Elgin Theater. If there are no more questions, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.